I recently was hired to do, I was recently hired for a new sales position, but the job isn't hard selling. The job is about taking a phone call, listening to someone's problems, figuring out what's keeping them from getting to where they want to be. And during the sales process, I've been really challenged to think about my life in a different way. And it's led to a lot of meditating, it's led to a lot of research, and I learned some things that have really helped me, and I want to share it with people in case this helps anyone else. The sales process looks a little bit like, what's the biggest problem? What's the cause of that problem? Where do you want to go? And do you see how that problem's keeping you from being there? And figuring out how to remove that problem. And the problem typically always has to do with fear, some type of fear. And it made me really start to wonder, what is fear? Where does fear come from? And ultimately how to remove fear. So I started asking myself similar questions to what I would ask someone on the call, and it led me to a place where I realized I was afraid of rejection from people. It led to me believing I'm not good enough, and I started thinking, where do these fears come from, and what does it mean? And so I started doing some research of what people thought, or where people thought fear originated, and I read a blog, and someone put forward the idea that fear is a defense mechanism of the body to keep you alive. And they said, our early ancestors might have been born with a fear of predators like lions and other animals that could kill them, and a fear of heights, and that's why they didn't jump off of cliffs or walk next to the edge of cliffs. And so this person was putting forward that fear can be a good thing. Now, in the context of this job and in the context of my life, fear is not a good thing. Fear is a bad thing because it holds people back from doing what they need to do to achieve their goals. Sorry if the camera was shaking. My knee's bouncing a lot. Anyway, and so I started thinking, more about what my new boss / instructor was talking about, and most of his beliefs focus around fear comes from an early trauma in our life, and we have to change the way we look at the trauma, and it'll affect where we're at now, where our mind's at now. And so I was thinking about fear, negative emotions, irrational decisions, and this progression made the most sense to me. When we're afraid of something, our body produces negative emotions to protect us from what we're afraid of, and those negative emotions cause us to behave irrationally. And those negative emotions can look like anger, sadness, guilt, shame, resentment, or anything like that. But what they do, or why we have them, is to protect ourselves. So let's say, back when I was a kid, I was interested in a pretty girl, and I told her, and she said, "Oh, you're ugly and I don't like you." My body will take that situation, it'll process it, and I'll have a fear of rejection because when I was rejected, it hurt me. Now, a lot of it is it's emotional pain, it's not necessarily physical torment, but my body didn't enjoy the rejection, so now it's going to produce these negative emotions to protect me in the future. But the issue is, when I start making these irrational decisions, the fear might not be justified. So I might be afraid to apply for a new job because I'm afraid I'll be rejected, even though I'm qualified. And so what this fear does is it just keeps me from going out there and achieving my goals. My body's doing it to protect me, but it's not really protecting me from anything. It's preventing me from success. And, you know, it was pretty eye-opening to me, because before, like, when you're stuck in those emotions, you're doing what makes the most sense, which is protecting yourself. You're, like, in the heat of the moment, your mind goes to, I need to protect myself. But it's not really helpful. And so when that made sense, like when all that kind of really started processing in my brain, I started looking at, where am I making irrational decisions? Okay, well, you know, I want this, but I can't get there. And the rational decision would be really easy, but I'm not doing it. And when I thought about it, you know, I thought about what I needed to do to bring it up, or like to bring about what I wanted. It made me feel stressed, anxious, nervous. And so instead of performing the action necessary to achieve my goals, I avoided it, because one, I hated those emotions, and two, well, I mean, pretty much that, when I thought about it, it brought up those emotions. And, you know, that ultimately I could trace, you know, well, I'm afraid of this, and that's why these emotions are happening. And with that thinking, I thought, you know, okay, it's great that now I can figure out what's holding me back, but how am I supposed to communicate with people who are afraid, but they might not know it? Because saying, oh, you're making a dumb decision, or you need to do this, never goes over well. No one hears that and they say, well, I guess you're right. I mean, I guess it can happen, but ultimately, how can I help someone see what's holding them back and, you know, get them to a place where in their head they want to do it? Because if someone wants to do it themselves, they're more likely to do it than if I'm just saying, oh, you need to do this. And so I thought of this as kind of like reverse engineering the situation by asking them questions. And it also basically fits with this, with the strategy for the sales call, which is, you know, you, or like with a friend, you know what they want to do, so you can say something along the lines of, hey, I know you want to do, like, you want this result, but you're not really trying to do it. You know, what's happening, what's keeping you from doing it? And they might say, oh, well, this, and this, and typically all their answers are going to be, you know, well, I'm avoiding what I need to do because I think this is best. And, you know, what we should do is just challenge them, like, well, why is that better than this? Or what's the reason why you wouldn't just do this because it seems simpler? And they might give some other stuff, but we have to push them to the point where they start seeing the negative emotion keeping them from doing it. Like, oh, you know, I get anxious, I get nervous. And, you know, I'm still trying to figure out how anger plays a role in it. Anger might be more like, you know, I see you're angry and that's causing this irrational behavior, like you want to be upset or fight someone. I don't know, but really, in my life, it's anxiety and nervousness keeping me from doing something. And so it's like, oh, I don't want to do that because I get anxious. Oh, I don't think I'm good enough, and all this stuff, like all these excuses. And what we can push for is like, well, what are you afraid of? You know, what are you afraid is going to happen? And if someone can get to the point where they say, oh, I'm afraid I'll be rejected, or I'm afraid I'll fail, or I'm afraid of this, you know, as a friend we can point out, well, I think it's your fear that's holding you back. And, you know, we can't permanently fix the issue. At least I can't. I don't know if you can. I know my new boss, he can remove fear from people's lives scientifically, which is amazing. But what we can do as friends is we can encourage them and help them overcome their fears. We can say, you know, I know you don't think you're good enough, but this is what I think about you. I think you're an amazing person. You know, I've seen what you do in the past, and you know a lot, and you know what you need to do. And I think if you overcome this fear, you'll be able to get where you want to go. And what we're doing is we're helping them see what's holding them back. We're not telling them, oh, just do this, because that's insensitive. If someone has a fear, it's real. It's very real to them. Their bodies, I mean, they're not even in control of it. The Bible talks about, you know, a sound mind comes from God, but when people don't have a sound mind, you know, it's their body acting, or it's like their subconscious mind performing actions for them, and it's trying to protect them. And this fear they have is real because it's happened to them somewhere in the past. And when we're sensitive to that fear, when we're sensitive to their emotions, we can help them much more than if we say, oh, I don't get why you wouldn't do that. Oh, I don't see why you wouldn't just do this. Because while we can think rationally, they can't, and they need our help to see, you know, what the issue is. And I know, you know, how I behaved in the past was very sure of myself, like, oh, well, no, I'm not good at that. No, I'm not good at this. But the issue wasn't my ability, the issue was how I viewed myself. And I know what would have helped me is seeing that my struggle was just the fear. And as soon as someone knows that there's no reason to be afraid, they can start working to achieve their goals. But I'm just now starting to think through this. I don't know if that's how it actually is. Those are just my thoughts. If someone thinks differently about it, or if I misspoke on something and someone can give clarity to me, I'd appreciate it. If someone's struggling to achieve their goals and they want to understand what fear's holding them back, I'd love to talk with them because, you know, I want to help people. I want to learn and grow from what people are going through. And ultimately, you know, I want to help people get closer to who they are, who they should be, and what they should be trying to do. And, you know, all this is really interesting when it comes into play with spirituality and where does sanctification lie with it. What values do you hold? You know, what's your purpose? What's your mission? And that stuff would make this a much longer video. But yeah, if you made it to this point, I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and I'd love to talk to you, or I'd love to get some feedback on what you thought. But once again, thank you so much for watching it, and I hope you have a great day. Figure out your fears. Spend some time reflecting on your life. Figure out where you're making irrational decisions. Like, take a step outside of yourself. Think about, I want to do this, but I'm not doing it. And if it's pretty irrational, there's a fear there. And once you're aware of the fear, you'll be a lot closer to your goal.